What if the man you once called a legend turned out to be your worst nightmare? Power, fame, influence. For decades, Sean Diddy Combs built an empire. But now, that empire is crumbling inside a Manhattan courtroom. And on day 17 of this explosive federal trial, the woman known only as Mia Combs' former right hand returned to the stand. Not to praise the mogul she once called a legend, but to accuse him of rape, psychological torment, and control so deep she says she forgot who she was. But Diddy's legal team had a weapon: her own words. Glowing Instagram captions, birthday tributes, even a scrapbook. So the question hanging in the air: was she lying then, or is she lying now? This is the story of day 17. Of power, of manipulation, and of a trial that could put one of hip-hop's most powerful men behind bars for life. It was Friday. The third week of testimony was about to end. And the woman who had once stood beside Diddy at parties, on red carpets, in recording studios, was now standing against him. Under oath. In a dramatic turn on day 17 of Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial, the defense attempted to dismantle the emotional testimony of the key witness known as Mia by turning to her past social media posts. Combs' attorney, Brian Steele, presented jurors with years-old Instagram captions and photos in which Mia praised Combs, calling him a legend and thanking him for being a friend. These posts, glowing with effusive language and joyful images, appeared to conflict with the harrowing allegations she had shared just a day earlier, allegations that included years of manipulation, threats, and 3 incidents of sexual assault. Steele's cross-examination strategy was clear: show that Mia's prior public statements were incompatible with her courtroom testimony, casting doubt on her credibility and intent. Despite the defense's pointed efforts to discredit her, Mia held firm on the witness stand. She acknowledged the authenticity of the social media posts but insisted they did not reflect her true feelings. Her explanation painted a picture of life under psychological duress. According to Mia, the glowing words she once shared publicly were the result of emotional manipulation and survival tactics within a toxic and abusive environment. She described a reality in which highs were high, the public image had to be maintained, and leaving wasn't a viable option. "It was the only world I knew," she told the court, recounting her 8 years in Combs' inner circle as all-consuming and deeply confusing. Her testimony highlighted how abuse often exists behind facades of loyalty, performance, and public praise. Years after leaving Sean Combs' inner circle, Mia testified that the past came back to haunt her, this time, through a phone call. It was shortly after Cassie Ventura filed her explosive civil lawsuit against Combs, igniting a legal firestorm that would soon pull Mia back into the spotlight. Mia told jurors that Combs' longtime bodyguard, known as D-Rock, reached out first. What seemed like a casual catch-up quickly took a strange turn. D-Rock called the lawsuit crazy, downplaying the allegations and suggesting that Combs and Cassie just fought like a normal couple. To Mia, it was no coincidence, it was a warning. D-Rock allegedly hinted that Combs himself would be calling her next. And when that call finally came, Mia said she panicked. She threw her phone across the room and fled outside. The trauma she had buried resurfaced in an instant. Combs didn't stop with the call. Mia said he texted her again on February 4, 2024, and when she ignored him, he followed up days later. The messages appeared casual on the surface, asking for just 10 minutes to jog his memory, claiming that Mia had been his right hand for years. But Mia wasn't fooled. She told the court she saw the outreach as manipulation, an attempt to regain control under the guise of nostalgia. Prosecutors argued that this was part of a larger pattern. They claimed that Combs had used similar tactics with another woman, referred to as Jane, reaching out to her and referencing continued financial support for her housing in what they described as a bid to influence her silence. Text messages sent to Combs' chief of staff right after conversations with Jane included instructions to ensure her rent was still paid, evidence, prosecutors say, of Combs leveraging money for compliance. In court, Mia faced pointed questions about these interactions. The defense painted them as proof that Combs was reaching out for clarity during a chaotic time. But for prosecutors, they demonstrated a sustained effort to quietly undermine the case from behind the scenes. Mia testified that after years of psychological abuse, she had become conditioned to the highs and lows of life in Combs' world. When she learned that the film company she worked for was being dissolved, she texted in a panic, saying she wanted to kill herself. For the defense, this was evidence that she was emotionally invested in the job and the people around her. But Mia pushed back, saying her breakdown stemmed from the loss of the only reality she had known for 8 years, a world built entirely around Combs, his power, and his control. As this portion of the trial unfolded, the story took yet another unexpected turn. Speaking to reporters in Washington, former President Donald Trump said he hadn't ruled out the possibility of pardoning Combs if he were convicted. Trump noted that no one had officially asked him for a pardon but claimed people were thinking about it. He acknowledged his past relationship with Combs, calling it amicable before his entry into politics seemingly drove a wedge between them. With that remark, the already sensational trial took on an even more political dimension, illustrating just how far-reaching its implications had become. As the third week of Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial came to a close, the weight of conflicting narratives pressed heavily on the courtroom. At its heart was Mia, a woman once immersed in the orbit of one of music's most powerful figures, now standing before a jury recounting a cycle of trauma, manipulation, and survival. Her testimony, raw and unwavering, painted a portrait of a man who, behind the veil of wealth and celebrity, allegedly wielded fear and control as tools of domination. Yet under relentless cross-examination, defense attorney Brian Steele sought to dismantle that image, piece by piece, using Mia's own past words and actions to imply deception, instability, and consent. But the truth in abuse cases, as Mia explained on the stand, is rarely black and white. Social media posts filled with birthday wishes and praise, a scrapbook penned in hopeful ink, and texts expressing despair over leaving Combs' employ, these were not contradictions, she argued, but symptoms of psychological abuse. It was a very confusing cycle of ups and downs, she said, highlighting the emotional complexities that often trap victims in silence. She was young, ambitious, and surviving in a system where personal loyalty often came with a high emotional cost. Her breakdown after learning the film company was shutting down was not, as the defense suggested, evidence of affection for Combs, but a collapse triggered by the loss of identity in a world built entirely around his approval. "That was the only world I knew," she told jurors. For nearly a decade, she lived on Combs' schedule, abided by his rules, and endured his alleged violence, all while maintaining a public face of support, celebration, and gratitude. This dual reality, she insisted, was not proof of dishonesty, it was survival. The prosecution aims to connect Mia's story with broader patterns, witness manipulation, hush payments, and a criminal enterprise allegedly fueled by exploitation. Through Mia and others, they seek to reveal the mechanisms of control that Combs is accused of mastering behind closed doors. But the defense continues to hammer home one central theme, that admiration and abuse cannot coexist, that past praise invalidates present pain. As deliberations loom on the horizon, jurors are tasked with navigating these complexities, distinguishing image from intention, trauma from performance, coercion from consent. The outcome will not only determine the future of Sean Combs but could also send a chilling or empowering message to survivors watching from afar. In a case shaped by fame, memory, and power, the truth may lie not in the extremes, but in the uncomfortable spaces in between. While Sean Diddy Combs is the man seated at the defense table, this trial has come to represent far more than the alleged actions of a single celebrity. As witness after witness testifies to a culture of excess, intimidation, and silence, it is not just Combs' legacy under scrutiny. It is the entire structure that enabled his rise and shielded his behavior. The music industry, long known for blurring the lines between power and exploitation, now finds itself in the courtroom's shadow, forced to reckon with the consequences of its permissiveness. Mia's testimony, and that of others, has pulled back the curtain on a world where loyalty was currency and speaking out meant exile. From lavish parties to closed-door violence, the accounts describe a system that rewarded complicity and punished dissent. In this sense, the trial puts an entire culture on trial, a culture that lionized charisma over character, success over safety, and image over accountability. The defense has pushed back against this narrative, attempting to reduce the charges to individual relationships and emotional confusion. But prosecutors argue the opposite, that what happened to Mia, to Cassie Ventura, and possibly to others, wasn't random or accidental. It was systemic. The architecture of Combs' empire, they claim, was built not just on talent and business acumen, but on coercion and fear. Beyond the courtroom, public opinion reflects a society still divided. Some view the proceedings as a necessary reckoning, long overdue for an industry where powerful men have operated without consequences. Others see it as another celebrity witch hunt, a spectacle built on ambiguous memories and the weaponization of regret. But as painful and polarizing as this trial may be, it signals a turning point, a demand for truth, for transparency, and for change in how power is policed. In the end, no matter the verdict, the testimony has made one thing clear: silence is no longer the norm. Whether in tweets, lawsuits, or witness stands, voices once muffled by fear are now speaking out, and the world is being forced to listen. As the third week of the trial came to a dramatic close, an unexpected twist emerged, not from the witness stand, but from the White House. When asked about the possibility of a presidential pardon for Sean Diddy Combs, President Donald Trump, never one to shy away from controversial headlines, said he hadn't ruled it out. His comments sent immediate shockwaves through both political and legal circles, drawing the nation's attention not only back to the courtroom, but to the broader implications of celebrity justice. "I don't know. I would certainly look at the facts," Trump said, acknowledging that while no official request had been made, there were whispers among Combs' circle. "Nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking." This isn't the first time Trump has teased high-profile pardons, especially for celebrities with past connections to him. Both he and Combs share New York roots, a history in entertainment, and a former mutual admiration, at least before politics drove a wedge between them. Trump himself even noted the fallout, saying, "He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, that relationship busted up." Trump's remarks underscore the increasingly blurred line between fame, justice, and political influence. For Combs, whose public image is already under immense pressure, the mere mention of a potential pardon adds yet another dimension to a trial that has already touched on power, trauma, and the media. Critics argue that even floating the idea of executive clemency during an active federal trial is both inappropriate and inflammatory. Others see it as classic Trump, a strategic, headline-grabbing move designed to keep his name tethered to the cultural zeitgeist. Yet, beyond the politics, Trump's comments reflect a deeper tension in the American legal system: who gets held accountable, and who doesn't. For survivors watching the trial unfold, the prospect of a pardon may feel like yet another reminder of how the powerful often bend the rules in their favor. But for Combs' supporters, it's a symbol of hope that he might escape what they believe is a deeply flawed prosecution. As the trial moves into its next phase, Trump's words linger, a reminder that even in a courtroom bound by rules of evidence, the influence of politics and celebrity looms large. As the trial prepares to enter its fourth week, the stakes for Sean Diddy Combs could not be higher. With a growing list of witnesses, graphic testimony, and a defense team aggressively trying to dismantle the prosecution's narrative, the case is shaping up to be one of the most consequential celebrity trials in recent memory. If convicted on all charges, including sex trafficking, racketeering, and multiple counts of sexual assault, Combs could face life in federal prison. The prosecution is expected to continue building its case with additional testimony from witnesses who allege that Combs used his wealth, influence, and inner circle to construct a criminal enterprise rooted in control, manipulation, and fear. Prosecutors have already previewed their strategy of linking Combs' behavior to a broader pattern of coercion and abuse, referencing text messages, financial records, and communications designed to maintain loyalty or silence. Meanwhile, the defense will likely double down on efforts to impeach the credibility of key witnesses like Mia, highlighting inconsistencies, past statements, and personal motives. Their strategy hinges on casting doubt, painting the accusers as participants in a toxic but consensual world rather than victims trapped in one. But beyond the legal battle, the trial is rapidly becoming a cultural flashpoint. For some, it represents long overdue accountability for a powerful figure who operated above reproach for decades. For others, it raises questions about memory, complicity, and the complexities of power dynamics, particularly within industries where fame often shields bad behavior. As public interest intensifies, the courtroom becomes not just a site for justice, but a stage for a reckoning, one that reaches into music, politics, and the very soul of celebrity culture. With every new witness, piece of evidence, and cross-examination, the story of Sean Combs unfolds not only as a legal drama but as a stark commentary on fame, trauma, and the fight for truth in an age of spectacle. The ongoing trial of Sean Diddy Combs has ignited fierce public debate and widespread media coverage, triggering intense reactions across social platforms, the music industry, and beyond. As disturbing allegations are laid bare in the courtroom, fans, critics, and fellow celebrities are grappling with the implications of the charges, many of which have been whispered about in entertainment circles for years but never proven in court. Social media has become a battleground of opinion, with some calling for a boycott of Combs' music and business ventures, while others express skepticism about the timing and motives of the witnesses. Hashtags like #SurvivingDiddy and #AccountabilityNow have trended, drawing comparisons to the reckoning scene in the #MeToo movement and the fall of other high-profile figures such as R. Kelly and Harvey Weinstein. Within the entertainment world, reactions have been mixed and cautious. A few former collaborators have expressed support for the alleged victims, citing past experiences of intimidation or discomfort around Combs. Others remain silent, likely waiting to see which way the trial leans before speaking publicly. The fear of retaliation or career damage still looms large in an industry historically reluctant to hold its power players accountable. Meanwhile, advocacy groups and survivors of abuse have pointed to the trial as a potential turning point, a chance to shine a light on the often hidden abuse within elite circles. They argue that regardless of the verdict, the mere fact that such testimony is being heard in a federal courtroom marks progress in the fight against systemic exploitation. At the center of this cultural storm is a once revered figure now facing a profound fall from grace. For decades, Combs was an emblem of black excellence, hustle, and achievement. Now, he stands accused of using that platform to exploit and harm. The court of public opinion is far from unified, but the ripple effects of this trial are undeniable, reshaping conversations around celebrity, abuse, and justice in America. As the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs moves forward, it becomes increasingly clear that the proceedings are about more than just one powerful man facing criminal charges. This is a moment of reckoning, an unflinching look at the intersections of fame, power, and abuse. The testimony has been raw, emotional, and, at times, deeply unsettling, revealing the inner workings of a world few outside the industry truly understand. Whether Combs is ultimately found guilty or not, the impact of the trial is already rippling beyond the courtroom. Survivors are speaking up. Institutions are being questioned. And fans are being forced to reconcile their admiration for a cultural icon with the serious allegations he now faces. The trial has cracked open long-buried stories and challenged the glamorized facade of celebrity life. In doing so, it has sparked a national conversation not only about Combs' guilt or innocence, but about the kind of accountability we demand from those in power. No matter the verdict, this trial may well be remembered as a cultural turning point, a case where the truth, in all its complexity, refused to stay silent.